days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time to get into the depth charts and talk about what the 49ers have done to improve each position. And I'm going to start with the offensive line. I think the offensive line is one of the most interesting positions that the 49ers have on their roster because there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. There is a position that right now looks like it's without a starter. There's a presumed starter in Ben Barch at left guard, but I think everyone would feel comfortable with the fact that there's probably going to be a competition there. And there's a lot of players that could be involved. But you got all this conversation going on right now that the 49ers were very interested in drafting offensive tackle Kelvin Banks out of Texas. And of course, we know that the 49ers have said that they wanted Mikael Williams, but a lot of people are kind of saying, hey, if it wouldn't have been Mikael Williams, if he'd have went to the Saints, it would have been Kelvin Banks. And I don't think that's a crazy thought process. I think that Kelvin Banks would fit the 49ers very good. I think he could have easily started at left guard initially and then moved out to tackle once Trent Williams retired. That's something that we've talked about a lot on the channel since all the draft happened. But I think that looking at this roster the way it currently is, there are definitely some question marks that they're going to have to answer. And I don't even think that even goes into just the left guard position. But you have question marks when it comes to your center. How comfortable are you with Jake Brendel? It appears that Chris Verster and Kyle Shanahan are pretty comfortable with Jake Brendel. When you look at right tackle, Colt McKivitz, lots of people have been calling for Colt McKivitz to be replaced. The 49ers seem to be very invested in Colt McKivitz. They keep signing him to new deals. I think there's, in fact, a possibility that sometime either in the offseason or during the first part of the season that they go ahead and try to re-up Colt McKivitz because he is a cheap option when you're talking about a starting NFL tackle. We just seen Jalen Moore go out on the open market and get $15 million, and he was a backup. Yeah, he played a lot last year for Trent Williams, and I think that gave a lot of teams, the kind of the tape on him to be able to give him the money that they really wanted to give him. But the 49ers offensive line is going to be one of the key factors to how this team plays. Aaron Banks has moved on. You have a position of need there. You have some competition behind that, but you didn't really invest in the draft. Could have been Kelvin Banks. It wasn't. It could have been Ariante Usuri in the second round. It wasn't. They went defensive tackle. Huge need. So it makes sense, and it looks like maybe they got sniped a little bit in the third round with Caleb Rogers. He ends up getting taken by the Raiders. Charles Grant, he goes to the Raiders. Maybe they were interested in going one of those two guys with that last pick on day 2, and they end up going with Upton Stout. He's the best player on their board. So, best player available, people like this is, right down your alley. You go ahead and get those guys. And I like Upton Stout. I'm just saying opportunity to get offensive line. They waited all the way until round 7 when they got Connor Kobe. And so what is going to be the realistic expectations for Connor Kobe in his rookie season? The 49ers drafted an offensive lineman last year in round 7 in Jacob Kingston, and he did not make this team. In fact, they waived him, and they were hoping that they were going to be able to get him to the practice squad, but the Carolina Panthers went ahead and put in a claim on him and got him there in Carolina. So there is an opportunity for Connor Kobe to potentially make this team. I've heard people go as far as to say he could start. I don't know about that, and I want to get into that a little bit in this conversation as we look through the depth chart and start making some claims about who's on the bubble, who's likely to start. I think there's some decisions that are going to be made, but I think we can kind of put this depth chart in perspective with depth. And of course, we got to talk about DJ Humphries as well, because that whole thing just came down yesterday with Matt Mioka's report. We'll get into that in 1 second, because I think that's a very important part of this whole conversation is DJ Humphries and the 49ers. So stick around for that. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you are going to bet, bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing. We're into the NBA and NHL playoffs. Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With a large selection of odds on everything from MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC, Bet Online remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head on over to the Bet Online casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Bet Online, the game starts here. So the depth chart is interesting, and it got more interesting because of the news surrounding the 49ers offensive tackle position with DJ Humphries. Now, what's interesting is Matt Maiocco came out and reported that DJ Humphries is not officially signed to the San Francisco 49ers. And you might ask, why did everyone run with this? Why did everyone have DJ Humphries on the 49ers 2025 roster? Well, his agent said that the 49ers and DJ Humphries had agreed to a deal in principle. And usually when that happens, it's a foregone conclusion. They've agreed to terms. All that has to happen, the player shows up, he passes a physical, they sign on the dotted line, and he becomes a player of that team. Occasionally, though, things change. A player decides they don't like something that is happening in the team that they're going to. Either they want more money, they are in a situation where maybe they want a guarantee that they're going to be able to compete for a certain position, or they want a starting position, or they want more guaranteed money. There's a lot that goes into this. So we don't know the exact reason right now that DJ Humphries is not under contract with the San Francisco 49ers. That is a huge change because I was feeling very comfortable with the San Francisco 49ers swing tackle being DJ Humphries. If something happened, heaven forbid, to Trent Williams, DJ Humphries is a legit first-round talent who's made a Pro Bowl in his career. You could slide him in at left tackle and he would be consistent. Would he be Trent Williams? Absolutely not. No one is. Would he be a consistent starter? Yes. If something happened to Colton McKivitz, you could have slid DJ Humphries into right tackle, and that would have been a consistent player that you'd feel really good about. And who knows? I mean, he's played at a Pro Bowl level before. That is a capability. He fits this system athletically. He fits this system to a T. But now there's question marks about DJ Humphries ever signing with the 49ers. And I haven't heard anything that makes this sound imminent. But also, the 49ers went a different route, it appears. So when they didn't come to an agreement with DJ Humphries, maybe they felt they couldn't wait. Maybe they still will bring him in for competition. They definitely have the roster spots. I mean, when you look at some guys like, Sebastian Gutierrez down at the end of the roster, you could easily move on from him to go with DJ Humphries if that was something you decided to do. But the reason I say they went a different direction is they signed two other offensive tackles. First off, another former first-round pick in Andre Dillard. So it appears Andre Dillard is the most likely to be the swing tackle. Maybe they signed the two guys because they want competition, because they also signed former third-round pick Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. So they brought in two guys. Maybe they're hoping one of them stands out and ends up getting that position. And I think it was interesting at the time. We were like, wow, they signed DJ Humphries, they signed Andre Dillard, and they signed Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. They went for guys who have a lot of potential that they could potentially see what they can get out of them. But now it looks like they signed the other two because they missed out on DJ Humphries, or DJ Humphries wasn't willing to officially sign. Maybe he couldn't pass the physical yet. His agent said he's completely healthy, and I think he probably is. It was a hamstring issue last year in Kansas City. So that kind of changed the complexities of the 49ers offensive line. Now we have to move DJ Humphries to the side, and he would have been the 49ers swing tackle, and he would have been a guy towards the top of this offensive line. Now there seems to be even more of a competition between three guys for that swing tackle role. We'll get into that, but let's go ahead and set the table for the starters. Of course, Trent Williams is going to start at left tackle. I've seen some people talking on Twitter that potentially Humphries was going to come in place of Trent Williams, that Trent Williams was going to ultimately retire. I think it's too late in the game for that conversation to happen. I think if this was pre-draft, I think Trent Williams would have done the 49ers a solid. Not to mention, he showed up for voluntary workouts. This doesn't seem like a guy that's ready to retire. Usually when guys retire from the NFL, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, they have some sort of an injury they can't recover from. Or number two, they don't want to go through the preparation process. Like, it no longer drives them to go through that. Trent Williams doesn't show up voluntarily if he's going to retire. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it ends up happening. I just don't see it. I think Trent Williams is going to be the left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers in 2025. And there's a lot of reports to say he's willing to play till he's 40. Maybe some of that goes into team success, but he did just re-up his deal last year. So Trent Williams will be your starting left tackle. Your starting center, it appears, is going to be Jake Brendel. And I say appears because right now there's been really no push that there's going to be any sort of a competition behind him. We'll talk about the guys at center that could push potentially Jake Brendel and maybe have an opportunity. We'll talk about that in a second. Your right guard is for sure Dominic Pooty. 100% Dominic Pooty is going to be the starting right guard for the 49ers. So Trent Williams, Dominic Pooty, those two are about as locked in as you can get. And that was an absolute dime of a pick last year. Fantastic. Colton McKivitz is also very much locked in at playing right tackle. Barring an injury on those top three guys, they are going to start for the 49ers. I think Jake Brendel, you can pretty much, I wouldn't say pin him in. Those coaches always say pencil him in because you want to be able to erase if you need to move someone up, somebody outplays them. But I think you can almost put that in pen that Jake Brendel is going to start at center just the way that they like him. So now that we've got that established, we don't know who the starters are going to be. So I'm going to start with left guard because I don't know who the starter is going to be at left guard. So let's take a look at who those guys are that are going to be up for the position. I think initially, and I do think that this one's a little up in the air. I know right now the presumed starter is Ben Barch. The way he played last year would illustrate that he should have an opportunity to play left guard. However, I do think it's closer than people think between Ben Barch and Spencer Burford because Chris Forster absolutely loves Spencer Burford. And I think that they believe that if they can get Burford a little bit more consistent, and maybe, he's been working hard. He dealt with injuries last year. If he stays healthy, they might be right that he could be an upgrade at left guard over what you got from last year with Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks really struggled with injury last year. He moved slowly. It wasn't a great performance, even though he got $18.5 million out on the open market. Now, the 49ers, because Barch and Spencer Burford are going into the last season, aren't exactly invested in one more than the other, so it doesn't really matter that Burford was a fourth-round pick. Yeah, they would love to see him show up, show out, be able to give him a little bit of a contract like they did Colt McKivitz. That's under, what is going on around the league, kind of under that threshold. But he has to play well. So I think that those two guys are super close. I wouldn't be shocked to see them rotate in training camp and see who ends up winning this role. I think this one's going to be a real battle. I don't think they're the only ones competing for that role either, as I think that Nick Zakelj is also going to be competing at left guard. And it kind of muddies the waters a little bit with, the right guard position. Somebody's going to have to get reps at right guard. That might be where you get Connor Kobe to kind of step in. And I know a lot of people are going to want to move, Nick Zakelj or Spencer Burford over to right guard. But I think it's important to go with a three-man battle at left guard. And right now, I would have it by the slimmest of margins heading into training camp. Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, Nick Zakelj. And Burford is the most talented of the three guys. He's the one that has the most capabilities. His second-level blocking in the run game is superior to the others. He's got more athleticism than the others. He's definitely the most talented. He's also the most inconsistent of the three guys that we're talking about. You have two wow plays followed by a whoa, what happened play. And so that's where he's got to get better. He is going into year 4. Maybe he learned a lot last year. And so there's an opportunity for Spencer Burford. I think Ben Barch is the most consistent of the three. You're not getting anything special. You're just getting the job done. He's going to get to the second level. He's going to secure that block. He's going to move people at the point of attack. It's not going to be like Burford. Burford might drive somebody off the ball 2-3 yards and displace them, which is impressive. Ben Barch, it might be 1.5 yards. So holes are going to be a little bit tighter. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but he can do it. He's also, decent against the pass with pass protection. He's got a decent anchor. He's able to play pretty well on the inside. So overall, great. He's the most consistent. And then Nick Zakelj is your best pass blocker. Last year in PFF, he graded over a 70 pass blocking on the interior. Great anchor. Able to hold up against bigger defensive linemen. Has enough lateral quickness and agility to be able to stay with bigger defensive tackles who can move. So that's what he does. So each guy has something they need to get better at. Burford needs to be more consistent. If he is, he wins this position because he's just more talented. When it comes to Nick Zakelj, if he can run block better. Last year, run blocking was a real issue for him in his time that he played left guard. He played okay. It was something like, you're like, okay, this guy can play in the NFL. But if he could get more consistent in the run game, if he could get some movement at the point of attack, if he could get to the second level consistently and lock onto those guys, then he has an opportunity. So I think that's what it looks like when you're talking about guard. And then you can kind of throw in the other guys that are going to be on this roster. I think that, Drew Moss might get an opportunity at left guard, but I think he's going to be, behind the other guys. And I know people want Connor Kobe to be a part of this competition for left guard, but I believe the way that Chris Foerster has done it in the past, I think he continues to do it in this situation, is I think he's going to play right guard. All you have to do is look at the last couple of times they've had this sort of situation where they drafted an interior offensive lineman to step in for somebody that could eventually leave. And right now, left guard, all three of the guys we talked about could be free agents next year. But when they drafted Aaron Banks to take over Laken Tomlinson, they didn't put him behind Laken Tomlinson. They practiced him all year at right guard behind Daniel Brunskill. And then the next year, they moved him to his natural position of left guard. I think that there's a chance that they just leave Connor Kobe at right guard. And he played right guard at Iowa, and they let him get those reps in practice and develop. And then eventually they could put him in the competition for left guard next year, or they could move Dominic Pooney to left guard, whichever one makes the most sense. So I think Drew Moss kind of gets rotation at right guard as well. The other guy at guard that's on this roster is Zach Johnson. And I think that there's a chance that Zach Johnson ends up getting moved on from if the 49ers, find another player out there, another veteran that they're ready to bring in. So I think him, Sebastian Gutierrez, there are a couple of guys that if DJ Humphries does sign, that they could end up going with. So that is your guard situation. I believe right guard is Dominic Pooney. I think if you got into a game situation and Spencer Burford wasn't starting, Spencer Burford would be your swing guard, playing left and right guard. So that's something to remember. And then I think Nick Zakelj has a chance to make this team right now because of his ability to play center. That might give him the flexibility. That's why you're also going to see, and we're going to talk about him in a second, Matt Hennessy playing some guard during training camp in the preseason. They're going to want to put him out there and see what he could do at guard because they're going to look for that guy that could be the backup center / guard. And that's going to come down to Nick Zakelj and potentially Matt Hennessy. And I know a lot of people want Hennessy to take that center position. So let's get into center. You've got the incumbent Jake Brendel, and you've got Matt Hennessy, who they brought in at the end of the last season. So he's very in tune with this offense. He understands all the reads. He understands all the calls. He's going to be able to do what you need him to do. This is a former second-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons. So if it is a meritocracy, there is a chance that Matt Hennessy could beat out Jake Brendel. He is more talented than Jake Brendel. Jake Brendel, though, has favor with the coaching staff and with the players because they believe in Jake Brendel. They know what they're getting. So Hennessy has a tough job here where he's got to be ultra consistent but also catch people's eyes. He's got to be really solid and really good and play up to the potential that he has. So this is going to be a interesting one. I think it's not going to be a foregone conclusion that this is a competition. It's going to have to be consistent on film, that when you get watching the film and you're Kyle Shanahan, you're like, look at Hennessy here. Look at Hennessy here. Hennessy sprung us for a big run. Hennessy anchored really well against Alfred Collins. You're going to have to get that to make this a competition. I don't want to say it won't be. I think it's going to be tough for Hennessy, but expect him to play some guard as well. He'll probably get some reps in the guard conversation. Shanahan talked about that because you have to have that swing player that can play center and guard, right? You had John Feliciano, perfect example of that, a guy that can play center and guard. Daniel Brunskill, center and guard. That's one of the reasons Nick Zakelj has a really good chance to make this team. He improved mightily last year at center. So when looking at the center depth chart, the 49ers have 4 centers on their roster. They have Jake Brendel, who is the starting center. They have Matt Hennessy, who should be listed as the backup. And then Nick Zakelj and Drake Nugent. Drake Nugent is a center-only prospect. And why do I say that? Because of arm length. Drake Nugent's arms are extremely short, and Chris Furster actually talked about this last year, that he's under the threshold for guard. And so I think that that's one thing to remember with Nugent, is he's got to overcome that part of his game. He was very good in his time in college, very consistent. We know that Chris Furster has a connection with his dad. He really likes Nugent. Nugent understands this offense now, playing in it for one whole year, being on the practice squad. He's going to be able to make the calls, and I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic, is seeing how far he's come, because that's one of the key elements for all these center prospects, whether it's Hennessy or Zakelj or Nugent, is they have to understand this offense and make the proper calls to the level of Jake Brendel. If they do that, then their athleticism and their ability to play can start to compete with him. And I think that this is going to be one of the things to watch in camp and in the preseason, is how well these guys operate when they read blitz, how well they operate sliding protection from left to right, when to do it. Are they going to do it at the right times? Then they have to do their job, anchor against really big defensive linemen. I don't envy a guy like Drake Nugent having to compete with a guy with the arm length of Alfred Collins, for instance. That's not a matchup that Drake Nugent's going to like. You're talking 5+ inches in the arm length department. Alfred Collins is one of the best stack and shed guys there is. He's going to be able to lock up and shed Nugent pretty consistently, getting into that chest plate. Nugent's going to have to protect his chest plate. So those are some of the battles that we're going to see in camp. So I think right now, just looking at the center position depth chart, I do believe, because Zakelj is going to be a part of the left guard competition, that Matt Hennessy is going to get the number 2 reps at center. So I do think it goes Jake Brendel, and then it goes Matt Hennessy, and then I think it goes Nick Zakelj. And I know a lot of people really like Drake Nugent, and I get it. I think last year Drake Nugent struggled pretty much in training camp and in the preseason. It wasn't clean. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because a lot of players can improve, especially when you understand a playbook and understand your role, and then have an opportunity to overcome. He's going to get reps, and he's going to get reps a lot of times because Nick Zakelj is going to be over at guard practicing there. So there's going to be opportunities for Nugent, but they have to continue to see what Nick Zakelj can do at center, because he's in competition to be that guard-center combo. You want potentially Barch or Burford, whoever doesn't win the starting left guard job, to be the guy that can play either side of the guard positions. And that might be another reason we see Connor Kobe play left guard sometimes, if they're looking to see if he can do both. You have to have versatility. But then you've got the Matt Hennessy, Nick Zakelj. So when you're looking for competition in camp, it's Burford, it's Barch, it's Zakelj for left guard. But it's also indirectly a couple of competitions as well. You have Hennessy versus Zakelj with the center guard combination, and it's Burford or Barch versus Kobe to see who can play that swing guard role as well. That's the best way. You've got to find a way to get depth. and be able to have these guys. So that's the interior offensive line. Let's talk about tackle. We'll start with right tackle. Colton McKivitz is going to be your starting right tackle. After that, there is a 3-man competition for swing tackle because of DJ Humphries being out, or it would have been him. You've got Austin Pleasance, who they had last year. I don't think they're sold on Austin Pleasance as a swing tackle. And then you got Andre Dillard, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. Those guys are in it. I'm not putting Sebastian Gutierrez as a real, portion of this competition. I think it goes like this behind Colt McKivitz. I think Andre Dillard is leading the charge. The versatility that he showed playing in the system in Green Bay, playing multiple roles, played left tackle, played right tackle, played some guard. I think Andre Dillard is the guy behind Colt McKivitz right now, and the leader in the clubhouse to be the swing tackle. Then I think it's Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. He is the built for the 49ers system offensive lineman. Quick, athletic, can move on the outside. Dillard is that too. Dillard's actually a better athlete than Petit-Ferrer. So just remember that. The difference is Petit-Ferrer is 26 years old. Dillard is 30 years old. So a little bit different when it comes to age, but both of them very talented. So I think it goes McKivitz, then Dillard, then Petit-Ferrer, then Pleasance. So I think Pleasance got moved down the depth chart pretty consistently. Now, the way that the 49ers run practice is, my expectation is that Trent Williams, because he doesn't practice very much, you're going to see a ton of reps to Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard is going to practice with the first team offensive line a lot. He's going to slate more at left tackle than probably any other player. He's going to have the Jalen Moore role. And so he's going to play left tackle a ton. He'll play all the preseason games at left tackle. Andre Dillard's going to be that guy. Nicholas Petit-Ferrer will be the guy behind Colt McKivitz. So he's going to be playing right tackle. That's what he did at Tennessee. That's going to be his role for the most part. He's in the competition for swing tackle, but I think Dillard's going to be the one that's in front of everything. And all bets are off if Humphries gets signed. If Humphries gets signed back to the 49ers, they reach an agreement and this deal happens, then I think it goes Humphries as the left tackle, and then I think it goes Dillard as right tackle, and Petit-Ferrer is kind of looking for reps. So that's something to remember if he gets added back in the mix. But that's how the depth chart is going to go at right tackle. Colt McKivitz, then Petit-Ferrer, because of Trent Williams not practicing very much. That's where Andre Dillard is going to be. Then I think Austin Pleasance will be the guy probably at right tackle behind Petit-Ferrer. That's where he'll be lined up. And then I think Sebastian Gutierrez and Isaac Alarcon will get some opportunities when it comes to left tackle. So you see that there's a lot of depth along the 49ers offensive line when it comes to guys who have played and started games in the NFL now. The additions of Andre Dillard and Petit-Ferrer were huge to make sure that you had depth pieces. So I think that Dillard, I feel pretty comfortable with being a swing tackle. I am less sold on Petit-Ferrer. I like the talent. I like the skill set, but there still needs to be a lot of development with that player. He needs to get a lot better consistently. You worry a little bit about his anchor ability. That's why I don't really see him as a guard. A lot of times we sign these offensive tackles and they move him into guard. I think Dillard could do that. I don't think Petit-Ferrer can. So that's something to remember when you're talking about versatility. I think it's going to be tougher for him to make this team because of that reason. So we've kind of got this thing, summed up this way, is you've got your starting 5 in jeopardy because you got 4 guys I think that they are sold on. I think that there's a extreme competition between 2 guys for guard. I think it's going to come down to Barch and Burford. I do think Zakel's in the mix. If Zakel can block better when it comes to the run, he'll put himself right in the mix because he's the best pass blocker of them. So that's going to be a question mark. But I do think Burford and Barch are in the leaders in the clubhouse. So that's going to figure that out. I don't think Matt Hennessy has a real shot as of right now to take Jake Brendel's job. I wish he did, and I hope he can outplay Jake Brendel in camp. In fact, I hope everyone plays better than we thought, and they enhance it because they got to block better for Brock Purdy. But the 49ers need to find consistency along the offensive line. So that's how it kind of shakes out. You've got some talented guys. Your swing tackle's more than likely going to be Andre Dillard. I think he's leader in the clubhouse right now, followed by Petit Ferrer, and then Austin Pleasant. Your swing guard will be the loser of the competition between Ben Barch and Spencer Burford. And I don't know where Connor Kobe's going to fit in this. This is the tough part. You want Connor Kobe on your team, but you've got to put together the best offensive line. And yes, you're going to need Connor Kobe in the future, but he was a 7th round pick. And so I don't think there's a guarantee Connor Kobe makes this roster. Just looking at the depth of the offensive line position, I think there's a question mark there. And so we'll see how it plays out. But it's interesting, the depth. I think the decisions along the interior offensive line are going to be fun to watch. Hey, who doesn't love offensive line battles in training camp? I love it. And I hope that Chris Furster leaves, competitions happening at several positions. I know Colton McKivitz is the incumbent, but let a guy like Petit Ferrer compete. I know that, Ben Barch is a presumed starter, but let Burford and Zakel really go after him. I know that Brendel is a starter, but let Matt Hennessy get a shot. Let Nick Zakel get a shot, and let's see what happens. So this is the 49ers offensive line depth chart. We're still waiting to hear if there's any more news on DJ Humphries, and we'll just keep that updated. But let me know, who do you think is going to be the starting 5? Do you think it's going to be Barch or Burford or Zakel? And, what would you do with Connor Kobe? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really curious. Of course, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.